Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Lena and I'm from Denmark. And when people hear that, they always say, "Oh, that's great. Let's talk about Denmark." And I say, "No, let's talk about China because that's what I'm passionate about." So I'm 26 years old and I've been in China for 5 years in total. And people say, "So you studied your whole degree here?" And I say, "Nah, not really, but how much time do you have? Because then I can tell you my story, but it's quite complicated and you'll probably lose track many, many times. So it's easier for me just to say 5 years in total. That's what I always tell people. And then they asked me, when was the first time you came to China? And I said 2011. And then they'll say, but it's 2018 now. And I said, just don't ask. It's okay. It's okay. In total, 5 years. Nothing else is really important. Yeah. So I came here in 11 and I was super excited and overwhelmed and feeling crazy and adventurous. And I was actually never scared of China. I've heard of many people, they come here, they're just like, oh my God, this is just too much. But I was very young and adventurous and naive and thought, oh, everything will be fine. And, Chinese people are just like me, just black hair and brown eyes. That's the only difference. I had no idea about cultural differences. I had no idea about anything really. I just thought it could be fun to go to China and explore something different and just get out of your comfort zone and try something new. So yeah, I came here, I taught English, it was crazy. I told myself I would never teach again, which I obviously couldn't not do because that's how you make money in China. So I was teaching a few times afterwards as well, but now I am a YouTuber, and no, I don't work full time as a YouTuber. People always ask me this question, oh, but how can you survive on a salary as a YouTuber? Or how do you make money as a YouTuber? And they say, well, I say that I'm a YouTuber because that's what I want to be. And I might not make all of my money from there, but the money I make in other jobs, they are supporting the dream of being a YouTuber. So that's the first thing I'm telling people now. Before, I would say actually up until like I think until January 2018, I would still tell people, oh, I'm a student, but I don't really study much. Now I realized it's much easier just to say that I'm a YouTuber because that is what I want to be known as. I don't want to be known as a student. So today we are going to talk about how to visualize what you really want in life, and I am going to share my story about how I managed to write my first book here in China. So I have experienced that when I mentioned that I actually wrote the book, people are surprised and they are a little, they are happy for me, but they also say, oh, I'm so jealous. Like, I would love to be able to do that myself. And I say, well, the only thing you really need is a good idea and, a piece of paper or a phone or a computer. It's really not that hard. But I think the thing about writing a book is that it's such a huge project. If you look at it from like a bird's view, if you look down and like, okay, I have to write 200 pages of like interesting content and people have to like it and people have to accept that I'm doing this now and maybe they think I'm stupid or I, you know, just my dreams are too big or something like that. And that's why we're going to talk about this today, because it's actually not that hard. Of course, you have to work hard, but starting, I think, is hard in itself. But then when you get started, it's getting easier because I feel like after starting the project, if you actually manage to write the first 10 pages, you'll be like, oh, I got started. Now I should write 10 more and 10 more. And then You write 100 and suddenly you're like, oh, now I can't stop because now I've done all this work already. It would be a waste of my time if I don't keep going, right? So yeah, we are going to talk about what is visualizing, and first I want to try to explain how people use it. So visualization is something very successful people use kind of to chase their dreams and remind themselves that they can do it. Like they set up their goals by visualizing what they want. So I will give you an example. For me, before writing the book, I had an idea of a book in my head, but it was very vague. Like the dream was like far away. It looked like far away land, seriously. I was like, it's so far away, I can't even like catch it. Like it's just, it has nothing to do with real life. So what I did was I sat down and I tried to imagine how I was sitting with the printed book in my hand. I was imagining that somebody had sent it over, like Amazon had sent it over, and the book was in my hand. I opened the book and I can see my name is there. My picture is there. All the words that I've been writing, they're in this book. The cover is the cover my friend, she painted for me, and it's just that the dream has already become reality. So this is what visualization is about. You have to sit down and visualize what you really want, and it's important to make it as real as possible. Like you're sitting down, you imagine how heavy the book is in your hand if you want to write a book. I'm just using myself as an example. So if you want to write a book, you're imagining the heavy book in your hand and the smell of this like newly printed book. And then you try to think and feel. You try to feel what kind of feeling is coming into your body when you look at the book. I would imagine that that feeling is success, happiness, excitement, all of these positive feelings. And then you need to try to remember these feelings for next time you want to sit down and visualize this. And now you're probably asking me, but Lena, how, like, I just imagine that I'm gonna buy a Porsche and then what? Like, is this gonna turn up in my garage next day? Or I want to write a book and next day it's just done? No, no, no. The thing is that this is kind of, I would say it's a mind game. Like you're kind of playing your mind. So a very common issue with dreams is that they're huge and they're overwhelming, and how am I going to get started? Like, this is crazy. I want all these things and I just don't know how to start. So you need to sit down and visualize this dream to kind of play your mind. You're kind of telling your mind that you can do this, that this thing that you're visualizing is real. It's so real that you're sure that you have already done it. This means that you're kind of, in a way, pushing your confidence and your boundaries and your belief in yourself. Because when dreams are big and overwhelming, there is also this fear that you cannot do it. Like, oh, I'm not good enough. That's what I thought when I wanted to write a book. I was thinking, nah, my story is not that interesting. And I was thinking, my English is not good enough. Like, I don't know how to translate metaphors. I translate straight from Danish to English, and people be like, oh my God, she's onto something, and I'm not. And that would be an issue. So all these fears, they come into your mind when you are thinking and dreaming big. So this is why you have to visualize what you really want, because when you can see your goal and your goal has become reality in front of you, then you're already one step closer to actually getting started. That is what visualizing or visualization is. So what you need to do, first step, you sit down and you write down what is your dream. And I know this question is huge, and you probably have a million things you want to do, but you need to make a list and you need to list them like 1, 2, 3. Which dream is the most important dream to you right now in this moment? Okay, so you write that list and then you look at the first idea. And then you have to try to imagine or visualize this moment or this situation. I'll give you another example. So right now I'm living in this little dorm and I'm sharing a room with another girl and she's great. I love her, but there is no space and we have too many things and we cannot bring boys over because IE is always having a checkup on everyone at the reception at the front door, which is kind of annoying, everyone has their needs. So what I do is sometimes I walk around Sanlitun area or another area that I really like, and I look at the big buildings where I can see people are living. And I try to visualize me being all fancy, dressed up, walking into the nice buildings and actually living there. Funny thing was that one of my followers came to Beijing and he is working a really nice job. So he rented an Airbnb in the middle of Sanlitun, and then he was going to another city for 4 or 5 days for traveling. So he said, "Oh, maybe you can just go and stay there because I already paid. So if you want to, just go and, do whatever you want to do there." So I moved in and stayed there for 4 or 5 days. And I was actually living kind of my dream or what I had visualized that I wanted to do. I want to be able to support myself, make enough money to be able to stay in a nice apartment in the center of Beijing somewhere. And then I want to be able to go down to Starbucks and have my coffee without thinking about saving money. I want to put my budget up from 100 kwai a day to 200 or 300 if that's what I want. I want to be able to buy a salad and a sandwich and also a drink. Usually I don't buy the drink to save that money. And so staying at that Airbnb apartment in Sanlitun kind of allowed me to visualize this kind of life. I've tried it before. I was not even trying to visualize it, but it just came to me that I was, sitting in a nice kind of house, like smaller house situation in the outskirts of Beijing. And I had a husband in my mind and I had 2 children. And what I want to do freelance and do my own thing and live on the money I can make out of my YouTube, and that's my dream life. So I imagined that they were sitting in the house and I was packing my suitcase because I had to go on a media trip to Malaysia, and I was going to stay in a hotel with a pool on top, like rooftop bar and pool, where I was also able to buy a Diet Coke without thinking about the price. And it was so real in my head, and that dream is still, something I'm working towards later on. So I have used those things as visualization, how to say, like lessons or like sessions as well. Especially the apartment in the town and being able to live on the money that I make on YouTube. So now we're trying to move on to how can you get started on that thing you want to do. A lot of my friends have said, I also want to write a book, or I also want to start a YouTube channel, but it's overwhelming. I'm not sure how to do it. First, if you want to use the visualization, it's a good idea to sit down and try to visualize yourself talking to fans, uploading a video, getting like super positive comments, being invited by a company to somewhere where they want you to make a video or be a speaker. I really want to be a speaker, so I've already like visualized myself doing a big speech for some conference, both in Beijing but also in other countries. Later on, I want, not hope for, I want to be invited for these kinds of events. So after figuring out what you want, you try to visualize this, and then when you have to start on your project or your dream, then it's a good idea to make an action plan. So I don't know if you have heard about action plans before, but basically it's you have a piece of paper, you get a pen, grab a pen, and then you write down, you kind of break your dream down. So again, if we take the book as an example, you will think, okay, what should I do first? Well, I would say if you want to write a book or start a YouTube channel, I would log on to YouTube, search how to start a YouTube channel, and then watch the video. And then I would take the steps in that video and write it down. And if the steps are too big, I would break it down into even like smaller things. Because I can understand that you're either overwhelmed or you're busy with your life, because life is always in the way. And a lot of people say, oh, but I have all these other things I need to do. And after work, I'm super tired. That makes sense. But if you want to start a YouTube channel, you can at least start by signing up, putting in like a profile picture, try to think of a name, create the design on your channel, and then you don't have to share the first video. Like, I'm very happy I never shared the first video that I made, because that was awkward AF. But yeah, I was in Singapore sitting in a hotel room. It was raining outside like crazy. I was depressed because I missed China, as I always do when I'm away for too long. And I put the camera in front of me, and I was literally, after turning it on, I was just staring at it. I was just staring at the camera, staring at me. It was so awkward. I was so awkward. I could feel the sweat in my hands, like cold sweating. I felt so weird sitting there talking to a camera alone in my room. So I just tried. La la la, hi, hey, hey, hello. And then started slowly getting more comfortable with the camera. And of course, I'd written down an idea of what I wanted to do, what kind of video I wanted to do. And then I just started there, and then afterwards I deleted it, and then I would do it one more time and one more time. But the thing is, especially if you're a perfectionist, so I'm not, I create something and then I think, oh, you have spent time on this, everyone should see it, and then I share it. But if you're a perfectionist, I know that it's different. You're gonna think, oh, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. But you need to put down some rules for yourself then. You have to tell yourself, okay, you are able to, or you are allowed to make 3 videos. And if the first one is not good, you can do it one more time. And if the second one is not good, you can do it the third time. But if the third one is not good enough, you have to share that one still. Like, you need to put down rules for yourself. I do that a lot with like everything in life, to be honest. Like, I don't eat chocolate anymore because the rule is I can only eat chocolate when I'm on my period. And now I don't even want to eat it when I'm on my period. So that works out really well. So you have to put rules down for yourself. But let's get back to the action plan. So you have breaking down. Yeah, you you broke down you broke down the steps for what you're gonna do. If it's a book, you have first, number 1 is probably write that one word, or write one sentence, or write a structure, like a plan of like the three first chapters. One, what is it going to be about? Two and three. You can also start with the summary of the first chapter. You can also just write a list of the people, the characters you want to be in the book. It really doesn't matter. For me, I was a bit of again, I'm not a perfectionist. So one day I just told myself, okay, girl, now we go to a coffee shop and then you start writing your story. So my story is a memoir. So I already knew the story. I just had to try to make it not as messy as it was in my head. So I sat down and I started writing. I made a structure by following blog posts that I had written in 2011. But to be honest, at that time, my writing was super messy. So now, 1 year later, I have actually totally changed the structure of the book because it was just one big mess. And my editor, she had like often had no clue what I was talking about or like the story. She was like, how did you get from A to B to C? And what happened to those five good friends you were talking about in the beginning? Why are they not in the story anymore? Right. So I really spend a lot of time on editing. I would say, well, I, when I watched videos about writing books, often the author or the person in the video would say, wow, you are so great. Like you wrote the first draft, like writing the first draft. That's just amazing. You have come so far. But now when I look back, I'm like, writing the first draft was seriously the easiest part. Then the next 12 months of editing and feeling down and feeling good again, and then feeling down again, and then editing again and again and again. That was like the really hard part. But every time I was feeling overwhelmed or saying to myself, you cannot do this, something is wrong with you, like other people have done it, but this is obviously not working for you. I sat down and made an action plan. I sat down and and wrote down. Now you do this step first. Step number one is just to edit 2 pages. Like the last time I got the manuscript critique back from my editor, I was dying. I had 3 days of not knowing where I was supposed to go. I was about to give up. But then again, I also thought that's a waste of money and time for everyone. And I knew that these feelings would come, so I'd already shared with the world what I was doing, so I couldn't just like leave it or just fancy. I couldn't just like run out of it and give up because people were already waiting for me to share the book. Yeah, so this is also a very good good advice. If you're going to start something, just share it. Share it with everyone because then you have to do it. People are waiting for you to do it, right? So first, write down what you want to do, visualize your dream, and then sit down and make an action plan. And if you don't know how to do it, check out YouTube, check out podcasts. Just gonna say that Spotify is not blocked in China right now. Yay. So you can listen to podcasts on Spotify, which is a great way to learn. People are so smart there and they're all very professional and talking about what they're really passionate about. So I've learned so much from there. Also bought a lot of books on my way towards writing my own book. And yeah, dreams are not easy. You have to work really hard. But I definitely think visualizing what you want and placing yourself in the future, even if it's just for a moment, that will push you in the right direction. And if your mind keeps saying, I cannot do this is not me, I'm not able to do it, just don't listen. Don't listen. Keep visualizing yourself in that beautiful apartment with the fancy interior design and the sexy husband and amazing work. And I always tell people that when I make enough money, I'm gonna have an eye come and cook for me. That is like one of my biggest goals here in Beijing life. So yeah, I'm just visualizing all the things I want, and the speeches that I wanted to do later on. I want to be a speaker. So that's why I'm here now. I asked Catherine if I could come and talk, and I also applied for other conferences. And yeah, of course, I wasn't sure if I could do it, but I thought if you don't ask, then the chance is quite small. Mm. It's always a good idea to ask. So I really think that's the best way to go. Visualize, action plan, and one step at the time. And don't listen to your own negative thoughts because they're they're a waste of time anyways. They're unreliable. Feelings are unreliable in general. Yeah. Is that okay? How long did I talk now? I feel like I've been talking for ages. Maybe not that long. Mm. Have I ever spoken that long? No. Oh, we sneak them in from behind. Like there's another door open until 5 p.m. and then after 11 p.m. like you can go home, so there's a door and you usually go. But usually it's just always sneak in. Yeah, almost always. It's weird, two people in the room, so it's like. That's why I always visualize myself in a fancy room. Well, we don't, because I did Chinese and she dates the Africans, so I don't think that's gonna happen. No, she's from Montenegro, Eastern Europe. Yeah, so we're both white, but she just likes black guys and I like Chinese. I don't know. She thinks they're sexy. She says that it's kind of true, but I don't know. Yeah, she just really likes them. Like, yeah, yeah. No, it's not. Oh, I know. Yeah, I do that. That's why I make videos about girls who actually are dating or are married to Chinese guys. Yeah, they're super popular. Like they were crazy. It's I'm like seeing people. I have like yeah. Oh yeah.
Hello? Testing? So, what do you think I can ask you? Something that maybe can bring, for example, like other dating? Okay. Yeah, actually, okay. I don't know.
You can ask about my YouTube. Yeah,
About your YouTube?
my YouTube.
Okay.
Ask me what I'm doing with my YouTube.
Okay. Then please tell me a little bit more about your YouTube.
Okay. So I started in 2015 because I was going back home to Denmark. I had to study there for 6 months and months to finish my degree, my bachelor's degree. So I had to go back. Like I could not stay in China. So I was really down about it, and I had to take a very boring job where I drove around. I was alone all the time, always alone. So, like when working. So when I was doing that, I started thinking China, 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 China. Like it's always like that. When I'm not in China, then my passion is just very crazy. Like it's just there all the time. So I was just thinking China all the time, and I started my YouTube channel in December when I came back to Denmark, and then I made videos for half a year until I graduated, and then I came back to China and made videos. So the videos have always been about China, like China focused, China related, everything. But then after a while, I started sharing some experiences with Chinese guys. And those videos took off, like they were so popular compared to other videos. So I thought, okay, I should probably make more like that. And I am a part of a group on WeChat for girls married or dating Chinese guys, and there are a lot of girls there. So I started making friends with those girls, and then I went out to interview them about their love stories with these Chinese guys. And the videos were popular, so I asked the girls if they wanted to do some kind of advice videos where we get a question from a follower or something we have read somewhere, and then we discuss it, me and another girl, for like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. And those videos are also really popular. So right now I'm thinking about what I can do with my channel, how to build a business out of these topics. I want to see if there is a way to create a passive income with either like dating in China, dating Chinese guys, how to date foreign girls or Western girls, or also I can also make videos about studying and teaching in China. There might be more money in that because there are big agencies here, so I could work with them. But I am more curious and more interested in the dating topic. I just need to see if there are people out there who are interested in buying products that will help them in dating. And I also wonder if I actually know enough, like when can you call yourself a dating coach? And I'm not really sure if I'm one. I just share my experience and what I've seen and heard and read, because obviously, because I'm in the group on WeChat, I see a lot and I hear many, many crazy stories all the time about cultural differences and problems and in-laws, and there are just so many interesting stories that I want to share, and I always hope that we can help someone. My goal for later is to create some kind of service where I can set up like Western girls with Chinese guys. Like that would be a dream, but I'm just not sure how I would do it, or how to set it up, or if it's even like something people would pay for or be a part of. I don't know, but it's still in the making. I know that there are great, what's it called? There are great I have many ideas and there might be a market. I just need to figure out how to put it all together, and I also want to write more books, so it's just about to put all these things together and make that action plan I was talking about. Write it down. Yeah. Hmm?
Some story or maybe some cultural difference challenge that maybe some of the linguistic group have faced, something that is very well.
So in the group, many girls are married and they already have one child. And because in our countries you can have one, two, three, or four children, it depends on you and your husband. But in China, it's a little different. So even though the children have foreign passports, like it's not because of the rules here, it's because the grandparents, they don't think they should have another child. So the girls sometimes want a second or a third child, and the grandparents say no, and the girls they say, well, it's my body, so and it's my family, so I can decide. But then very often the guys are stuck between the mom and his wife, you know. So he kind of has to be the person in between to like settle the conflict, and he's usually a little scared of his mom or used to, her being dramatic. And very often the man decides to listen to his mother instead of the girl. So that's one of the main issues. Another issue is money, of course. I think money is always an issue, but here the issue is that in Chinese families, if somebody needs money, then you borrow the money, or you borrow them a lot of money sometimes. And because these people are a part of your family, but these people might not be good at handling money, and you know that the money won't come back. But if you don't borrow the money to them, then the parents will criticize, or a war will start between the different family members. So that's another huge issue.
So another question, for example, what do you think maybe I can ask you regarding the YouTube channel? I think it's very interesting actually this topic. I was really there are connecting the cultural difference that you can face in a relationship, no?
Oh, I'll keep going. I'll keep going then, if you want me to. Yeah, so okay, so when dating Chinese guys, very often we start in English, and then we speak English for like a week, maybe two, maybe a month, and then it slowly goes into Chinese. And in my experience, it never goes back into English again. Like then in after a few months, we're suddenly dating solely in Chinese with no English unless I'm tired and I don't want to speak Chinese. So I'll speak English to him and then he will reply in Chinese. Usually they're too lazy to speak English. um, what I've experienced is that if the girl has met the Chinese guy abroad, then they might be dating in English and still be speaking in English to each other. But mostly the girls will be dating in Chinese, because a lot of the girls who are in love with Chinese guys, it's because they have already been in China for a while, studied Chinese language and culture, and is very in love with the country and everything already. And then they just accidentally bump into a Chinese guy because, surprise, there are a lot of Chinese guys in China. So they fall in love and then they start their life and everything is in English. No, in Chinese, sorry. But then the problem is that very often when it comes to education in China, many Western girls they would like to go home because they don't like the Chinese education system. And then the problem is that the husband doesn't speak English because they started dating in Chinese if they met in China. So many of them are kind of stuck and forced to stay in China because of this language problem. Yes. So that's one big problem. Another problem is when the girls are pregnant. So in China, you have to sit the month. 1 month you have to stay at home. And if you really follow the old traditions, you're not allowed to watch TV, play on your phone, hold your baby, shower, do anything. You cannot go outside either, of course. So you have to stay in your bed for a month, and a lot of girls obviously do not want to do this. So some girls have been kind of forced into it, but a lot of them have been stubborn and saying, no, I'm not going to do it. Or they stay at home, but they still play on the phone. They still take showers. Of course, you want to take a shower after giving birth. Like, it's not, you're obviously dirty, right? It's from like old times, like that time where you're like very, at that time when people are poor and like you cannot, if you go outside everything is dirty, and like it's all these old beliefs that if you do anything your body will just like fall apart, like you have to recover. Obviously after giving birth you should take a break, right? But it's just a little too over the top. Like it's saturated, I think. So now the modern style is to go to a spa kind of place and just like hang for a month with your baby, just like be on a baby vacation. That's like for the rich people. I read people go there, but I haven't heard any like foreign girls do that. Usually they just stay at home and rest a little bit, and then after 2 weeks they would take out the baby, and all the aunties around would be like, "No, you cannot take your baby out." Yeah, so that's a problem here in China, especially the girls who live in smaller cities, because aunties or like random people on the street, like everyone wants to give them advice on how to treat their babies. So one girl I visited in a very rural area of China, she had to deal with this every day because her child is wearing foreign clothes, so foreign brands. So the clothes, because it's super cold outside, so the clothes, it looks like it's thinner. The Chinese kids, they wear very heavy clothes. They can barely move because they wear so much clothes. Like arms are just flying around and they cannot, like if they fall, they cannot get up again because it's so much clothes. So her baby can move around because she's wearing this like thin but very good material clothes. And aunties come and talk about this all the time and come and like, oh, your baby must be freezing. She must be freezing. She must be freezing. You don't treat your baby nicely. You have to take care of your baby like all the time. And if they don't do that, they will come and say, "Oh, foreign girl, mixed baby, so interesting." Like everyone wants to hold the baby, like even though she's just like, "Don't touch my baby." Like I just want to be left alone. But she creates such a stir everywhere she goes because it's a smaller place. But her husband cannot speak English, so she cannot go anywhere else. She was in love and she didn't think about this language issue. Or he promised he would learn English later or German later because they were talking about going back to her country. But it didn't happen because when you're in a place where everyone speaks Chinese and you're not good in school already, then it's almost impossible. Like it's just not gonna happen unless you really, really, really want to do it. So now they are going to stay for probably many more years in the Chinese countryside. Yeah.
What other question? Another thing, very interesting topic.
Yeah.
I don't know, you made me put into the situation of the lady being here,
Hmm.
the challenges in the case because of the tradition,
Mm.
you know, and
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the big issues. Another issue is a lot of girls, they like to have a pet, but many Chinese mothers, they think that when you're pregnant you cannot have a pet because like the dog is gonna, I don't know what they think the dog will do, but they just apparent like bacteria or something, like again old style thinking. Because the thing is, everyone knows that the Chinese generation, like the younger and older generations, are million of years apart, right? Like the older generation grew up without education. A lot of the in-laws are from the countryside, and then they have these spoiled children who grew up in the city, and they don't the single children, they don't know how to do anything on their own, so they ask their parents who doesn't haven't gone to school, and then these things happen, and very often the mother-in-law is very strict. That's the ones who complain the most in the group, obviously. They're very strict, so they go and just take away the dog or take away the cat, and then the girls go crazy. And one girl, she had an abortion, and then the parents, her in-laws, thought it was the dog's fault, which, why? Like, the question is why, right? So they took away the dog, and the girl, she was already depressed, of course. She had to stay in the hospital, give birth to the dead child, besides the girls who gave birth to a live children, babies, right? And then she went home and the dog was gone. And she was just like slowly dying inside. But then she put her foot down and she got the dog back, and she luckily also had gave birth to a healthy baby afterwards. But it was an awful time for her to go through that, for sure. So you see, the stories are many.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
It is.
And I think with China, this is also very interesting.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah.
But notice that now we are not training. I haven't trained and haven't put vocabulary. No, I mean that based on the topic, I also put, so there are two ways
Oh,
to train the voice.
yeah,
Is using your voice
yeah.
or using text. So I use both. And in the text is probability. So if we are going to talk about understanding people about relationships, I would put some content about that. And by listening also your speech, I take the content. This words a high probability that you may mention in the topic. So if you, because of your accent and maybe the speech is not very well recognized, then they always change for the good word, the program automatically. That's what we try to do here. So, so let me see. Okay, 50 minutes. We just need only 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You know, but I didn't feel the time passed so fast.
No, me neither.
Yeah, I know. Already 50 minutes. Okay, so let's see. What other things? Well, again, something maybe related with the event. Some topic related with the event. Partner, let's see. Or maybe some advice, or maybe some example of case that you really yourself embody by overcoming a challenge. That may be something that maybe you can discuss. You can start.
Okay. So I'm just trying to come up with an example of the. Oh yeah. So when it comes to visualization, I was watching one video from a girl in Australia, and she gave a really good example of how to visualize what you want. She wanted to she wanted to hit the 100,000 mark, like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. And she told in the video, she said, okay, I imagine myself going down to open the door, and the mailman, he is giving me a big package, And then I'll open the package and I will look down and I'll feel the excitement run through my body from top to toe. And I can, when I see the plate where it says 100,000 subscribers, and then it also says the channel name. And then I will go and sit in my room, on my couch, and then I will feel again the happiness and all the hard work. I would feel the all like what's that called? The jiegua. Like all the result of the hard work that I've been putting into my channel for so long. Now it's finally here. And then I will put the camera up in front of my table and I will start the camera, show all of my fans the plate where it says 100,000 followers. And then I'll say thank you, every single one of you. I love you so, so much. Thank you for helping, supporting, pushing the channel. Thank you for always commenting and being there when I needed you the most. She will just keep thanking them for like 10 minutes for the video and put it on her YouTube and put it on her Instagram and Snapchat and everywhere, Facebook, everywhere she can put it, she will put it there. And then she will sit down afterwards, put the big plate on top of her bookcase, and then she will just look at it and feel again this feeling of happiness and excitement and satisfaction. And those feelings, she said, is so important. So if you do something that worked out and you have this extreme happiness feeling, you need to try to save it in your brain, save that feeling. And then when you do the visualization, you have to use that feeling one more time. Okay, so actually a few days ago, I have a WeChat account, official WeChat account, and I was sharing an article from a woman who is in Gansu province, a foreign woman. She married a Tibetan man in Gansu, and then they started a school up there. And the school is to help minority children come to school. Like they have never been educated before. They grew up in the mountains and they don't even know how to write their own name. So this woman, she is very interested in art and she started taking in these minority children from the mountains. The children, they had only been taking care of sheep before. They'd never gone to school. They couldn't speak any Mandarin. They had no idea how to concentrate for more than 2 minutes at the time. And the only art they had done was drawing in sand and mud. Like that was the only thing. Came from very, very poor areas of China. So when when the children came to school, she only charges 500 RMB for 5 years of schooling. Tuition fee is 500, which is literally no money. So her and her husband bought this very expensive house and they bought it together with another man. And then one day he suddenly needed the money back. So that was a problem because they didn't have enough money for the house and the kids they couldn't pay any money either. So after that, the woman, she started a campaign where she was trying to reach the goal of I think it was 500,000 RMB, like 500,000 for the house. And my friend is also friends with her, so she had time to fly over to Gansu and interview the woman and interview the students. And then the interview, she created a story out of that. And in the story, she sent that story to me. She sent some pictures to me. And then I put it on my WeChat account. and we pushed it in every single group on WeChat we could find. And in between 12 hours, I just want to say I only have 300 followers on WeChat official, but in between 12 hours, the post had been written by 4,500 people. Just because everyone was so determined to help this woman and help the school and help the students. It was just amazing. Like when I saw that number in the bottom of the post, I was just so satisfied and so happy and so excited. The feeling of helping other people, especially people in need, it was just amazing. And I was really trying to grab onto that feeling and think, okay, you need this feeling for your visualization because this feeling is so important to for later on when you're doubting what you're doing or doubting that you can actually reach your goal. You will take that feeling from your memory and say, okay, you remember that time. Yes, I remember that time. I want that feeling to be there again. And I can only have that feeling if I've saved it in my mind. So every time things like that happen, save those feelings for the bad days. And when the bad days happen, you sit down, you visualize, and you feel that excitement again. You can see it clearly how your dream is in front of you. And then what I have experienced is that afterwards I'm like, oh my God, of course I can do it. Gosh, no problem. Of course I can. Yes, because I need to help people. If I don't share my experience about dating the Chinese guys, how are the girls who are in love with Chinese guys then how are they able to figure out what the Chinese guys they mean when they don't say what the Western guys say when they like you, right? One girl, she said, my guy, he never says that he likes me. I think he does, but he doesn't tell me. But he's always feeding me all the time, eating, 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 eating. I said to her, yes, because Chinese people, they show their love and affection with food. And another girl complained about this as well, but her husband was feeding us all the time, feeding us fat all the time. But he never said, I love you to her. But this was another way to show it, right? So cultural differences all the time. Yeah. But we need to share this experience because else people gonna give up and be like, maybe I'll just date in my own culture. Like, to be honest, for me too, like dating a Western guy or a Western minded guy is obviously much easier, much easier. But there is also something interesting, very interesting about dating in another culture. You get to learn a lot of new things all the time. And I also think that it's pushing your boundaries and your patience and your just knowledge. I feel like you learn all the time and pushing the boundaries and then you grow. I think you grow as an individual but also as a couple if you stay together with the person for a longer time. You get more used to each other as well. In the end, it's just two people loving each other, and if they love each other, then if they can talk about the issues, then they will probably be able to figure it out. Like I know now that China is too big a part of my life so that if I was to go back and find a white Danish guy, he'd be like, oh my God, she's talking like, are you dating me or dating China? Seriously, just go back to China and be in love. I don't care. Like, you obviously only think about her all the time. So that's what I tell my mom when she says, oh, there are many very nice white guys here. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But they don't speak Chinese and they don't understand why I just really like Beijing. And, yeah, so I try to explain that to her. And then she says, well, there are also Chinese guys in Denmark. And I'm like, she really wants me to go home, yeah. Mm. Okay. Yeah, so I really hope that these tips and tricks and the action plan can help you get started on what you want. Remember also to check out my YouTube channel, Lena Around, of course, if you're interested in knowing more about China or Chinese guys. It's up to you. And also, if you have any questions, you can always find me on social media, Lena Round, and ask me if you're like, okay, girl, I just wrote this action plan, but I'm just wondering, how do I put that first word down on my computer? And then we can, talk about it and discuss how you can fix it. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you soon again. Ling Ling is out. See ya and 再见. I always say that.